Should I start? Thank you. My name is Sara. I'm a recovered addict, alcoholic, located in Sweden at the moment. Nice to see you all this evening, morning, or lunchtime. Um, um, I actually got kind of scared today. I don't get scared that much, not that easily, but today I got scared. And that tells me something that I need to look at myself for some reason. And I found the reason. So everything is, but it was kind of interesting because I don't usually tend to stress about, sharing the solutions because this is what we do. This is what we should do without hesitation. But when it's all about me, how I look in front of you and how I talk, how I share, how I pronounce the book and how I talk about the solution or how I, and it's in English and I'm not English, I'm Swedish and, it's kind of, yeah. But the funny thing is, as when I come into one of these rooms, it gets kind of quiet. Everything turns out to be okay. So I'm home, I guess. So yeah, I'm supposed to talk about 1 and 2. And it took me a long while to actually understand what my problem was. Because I was blaming other people. I was blaming society. I blamed the cops, the social services, my mom, my dad. I blamed everybody. It was, they were the problem. That's why I used and that's why I drank. And after 22 years of using, I came to the rooms of a 12-step fellowship, and I got introduced to this big old book. I actually stole my first big book. I stole it from rehab, and that is also my first amends, but that's another story. But I met a lady that actually had a solution. She's been in the same situation as me. She'd been in that despair that I was in at that moment when I got into that room. And she took the time to talk to me afterwards. And she also took the time to go to that meeting, to share the solution and to sit with the book and to teach other people about what we actually suffer from. So when I spoke to this lady the first time, I wasn't talking. I was at a meeting first, and they were sharing from the doctor's opinion, and they were talking about mental obsession and abnormal reaction to alcohol and drugs, and what happens when they do, when all the situations they had been in, and I could actually relate to this. I thought I was kind of a little bit better than them, but I could relate and resonate with what they said. And after this meeting, she'd said something, a lady said something to me that I didn't know then when she said it, that it was the truth. Maybe in some way because I got very offended by her telling me this. And she said, if you are anything like me, you are most probably going to die. And I'm not going to tell you what I said or what I thought I said, because I wasn't that cool. So I think to myself that I was kind of, like this, but I wasn't. I just left the room. And then I went on and relapsed. And then I got back a couple of months later. And so it's kind of funny because I actually have a picture of myself being this, but I'm not. When I don't have a solution, I'm not that. I couldn't even speak to the people in that room. I couldn't barely look at them. And I dressed up this first meeting and, I looked like I was out, out to do something else rather than going to a meeting. And I actually was. I didn't know it. But by the grace of God, I guess I had like 30 days more in me. And then I got back to the rooms and got a sponsor and worked the steps. And that's a very short, brief explanation of what actually happened. But I'm at the age of 34. I turned 34. I've been sober for a couple of days, turning 34, looking like an old lady. I look older than that I do today, and this is 7 years ago, so it's kind of. And I didn't understand that the problem centers in my mind. So I actually believed for a while that I could, do this by myself. I didn't need you, and I didn't need a sponsor. I didn't need a fellowship. I didn't need a big book. I didn't need anything. I could rely on my mind taking me places. And that's kind of fun because it took me to rehab. That's where I got, and it took me to the rooms of, 2 different fellowships, closed-up fellowships. And when I got sponsored, we started talking about, the problem centers in the mind rather than in my body. Something is wrong inside of here. And yes, I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol and certain drugs, not every drug, but to certain drugs. And something happens when I start to use. The problem is that I don't actually want to stop. I think I have something to do with this. I think I have a choice of me, starting or stopping, but I don't. So therefore, the problem centers in the mind rather than in my body. It says on page 24, for those who have a big book with them, at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. And the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. And when I sat with my sponsor, we talked about what is my experience about this. Do we have this experience? Is the fact is that could I relate to what they are saying here? Could I actually see that I am that type of person, that type of alcoholic addict that don't have a choice in drink or using? I actually believe that, yeah, but if I only try harder, it's going to go okay. Next time and next time. And the next time came, but I never succeeded with a try. Every try I did, or every time I tried, I failed. So it said something to me, and this was my experience here. With sufficient force, I cannot bring in, take that memory, bring that back to me. And even though I have that memory, I'm going to forget it. I said to myself for millions of times, I'm never going to do that. I have this very graphic history, stories I could tell you, but I'm not going to do that. When I wake up somewhere in maybe here or in another country or in a different city, looking for my clothes or looking to get home, and I'm never going to do this again. And I do the exact same thing 2 weeks later or even a week later because I forget how it actually is. And therefore the problem centers in my mind. So something is wrong inside of my mind. What we call it in Sweden is sinnessjuk. Mentally disturbed. Something is wrong with you. And yeah, I can absolutely agree. Something is wrong. Because who else is going to, put yourself through that kind of suffering by choice? I don't. I don't like to suffer, but I've been suffering, I've been in the suffering for a lot of years, but I don't like to be there, but I put myself there all the time. And many times I ask myself, what is what is the problem? Why am I doing this? Because I lost a lot of things during my time as in my active addiction. I lost my son. He didn't die, but I lost him. It took him away from me. And I lost my husband. I was married for almost 10 years and he died of this. He died in this. And I lost a lot of friends and lost my home. And I got very sick and I got very badly beaten up for many times. But, that wasn't enough to stop. And that also tells me something. I don't have anything to do with my next drink. And I always believed I had. I always believed that I had something to do or say about this with me drinking or using. I said it was, I blamed myself for a lot of times. Why do you do this to yourself? I don't know if you could relate to what I'm saying right now, but I think you can. The questions you have when you don't understand. Why is this happening? I told myself that I shouldn't, but I did it again. So yeah, at certain points, I'm not going to remember what I, made as a promise. I made a promise never to, not to again, but I did it again. And then I'm going to make another promise and I'm going to, you know, forget that promise too. And the funny thing is that this is very hard for me to express in another language. But the funny thing is that when the mind shifts from being certain to uncertain, you don't even know it. I didn't even know it. It got from one decision to not even knowing that you made that decision, if you understand what I'm saying now. It's kind of I make a decision never to use again, and 5 minutes afterwards I don't even know what I'm saying. I don't even remember that I made a decision. So this is something happening, in the back of my mind, so to speak. So it's kind of when I started to, and I don't even know if I understand the width of it today, but it's kind of scary. There's something inside of my mind can, my mind can play, tricks on me. So yeah. Can go to page 30. And as they say here, most of us has been unwilling, to admit that we were real alcoholics. That was kind of a dirty word for me. I could say that I was a drug addict. That was okay because they are cool. I thought so. An alcoholic is, my mom. She's not that cool. So it took me a while to actually, because I thought an alcoholic was this, this bag lady. I'm sorry for saying this, but this bag lady that, punishes her kids and so, but I know now that an alcoholic is something else. Yeah, I saw the symptoms of alcoholism in my mom, but an alcoholic is something else. And I also got that explained to me when I got here. So yes, I am a real alcoholic, hopeless alcoholic. And also, even though it was hard for me to admit, and the funny thing is that we are unwilling to unwilling to admit what we actually suffer from, because I'm not done before I'm done. And this is also very scary. I had a conversation with my sponsor the other day, and we were talking about just what happens. I'm done when I'm done. I don't even know why I got done. When I had this moment of clarity a couple of years ago, and I was, like done that moment. And that moment led me to rehab, and from that rehab relapse, and then into a fellowship. And yes, I worked the steps, and now we're here on a Friday night. But all the other time, what is the difference from those other times to that time? And I have been unwilling to admit anything. I don't have a problem. You have a problem. I don't have a problem. I don't drink like Reinhold does. And I don't, do drugs as Louise does. I don't use as Kickan. You are, so I can continue with the blame game, but, don't point your fingers at me. So it seemed that for some reason, and I think God has something to do with this. And, I learned that I had to fully concede to my innermost self that I am an alcoholic and an addict. I needed to understand what it actually was. And based on that information, I could, have this experience. But I would say that I know I am in a thumping group, so I'm going to watch my words a bit. But, it's like, I don't know if I actually understood what was happening when I worked the steps. When I did my first step, we were just talking and we were reading, and I got the information. I could say, okay, yes. And that was kind of what I was able to do at that moment. I wasn't able to do more. I just, got in almost, sober, almost. Yeah, I wasn't using, but I wasn't that smart either. So my sponsor did a lot of work by guiding me. That's why you have a sponsor. She guided me through the works of it. And for that, I'm grateful. And she asked me a lot of questions. And I love the way of being sponsored, because this is my opinion, sorry. But, for many times, I like to see a person, I look at them like this, but I need to look at them from where they are standing. And I cannot believe that everybody comes to this fellowship or any fellowship at all. They don't have, vad heter förutsättningar, Kickan? I lost the words, I'm sorry. But yeah.
Tappa också det.
Ja.
Circumstances.
Tack. This is a Swinglish book study. Yeah. But yeah, so I learned that I had to fully concede to my innermost self. And I actually came to that, conclusion with the help of a sponsor, because by myself, I wouldn't have, understood it. It's impossible. It was impossible. I think it's impossible for almost everybody. We need that type of guidance. So, and what happens when I fully concede to my innermost self? That is my step one. Without this, it's not going to, nothing is going to work without me conceding. And I believe that it says I concede to my innermost self, and where is that innermost self? And I believe it's kind of here. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I believe it's here. And this is nothing you can, you can't do. You can't make this happen with knowledge. You have to have this experience. And I think you get this experience by talking and doing action. I think you have this conceding. You could concede. Kickan, can you please check? Because something is scratching. So I think that from that moment, it wasn't that hard. I actually understood that I'm about to die. And I have died a couple of times. And I didn't want to, to actually die and stay dead, because I'm not dead. But that was kind of hard. I actually understood for the first time, and at this moment I'm 34 years old, and I understand that this is this could actually kill me. I have two components inside of me that wants to kill me, and I actually believe that the mind of me is going to save me. But this is the problem. And I'm starting to understand this now. So, it took a lot from me. It took a lot of years to actually come to this conclusion, and it's not that easy all the time. It was that at that moment, but what took me to that moment for some, identification. What I also learned about alcoholism, it's not you can stop, with the drinking, but you're still an alcoholic. You're still kind of weird. And weird is not the right word, but something inside of me is not working as it should. Something is doing stuff to me that I don't even know about. And so when I believed that I could go, I didn't want to be in this room. I didn't want to, have the help, because I'm scared. So that fear almost took me away from the rooms, also because I don't like to ask for help. But I'm very happy that I did. And today that's not a problem, because I understand that I cannot do this by myself. But what I want to say with this is, I'm when I'm in this insanity, that I don't even know that it is an insanity, because my truth is your lie, and the other way around. I experienced it now, looking back, as like a twilight zone. And I could have arguments and discussions with people, and they could say, but you're not, you don't have your feet on, on planet Earth. And I said, yes, I have, but you don't have. So you are wrong and I am right. And everything was upside down. But now today I could see that, yeah, when I'm in this state, when I'm, being a mind slave to my mind, the perception I have is not correct. I'm not going to be in the same. I'm not going to be at, in the same place as you are. I'm not going to see stuff like you see them. This is why people try to help me for over 25 years. The first time I set my foot at social services, I was 6. And hopefully the last time was 35 years old. But that's a kind of a long stretch in time. But I could never see what they saw before I recovered. That's when I saw what they saw. So, yeah. So it's only, you take away the drinking, you take away the drugs, and you start to inject yourself with shit. And, yeah, that's a good first step. But I also need to understand what I suffer from, because if I don't, I'm going to use again. Because, as they say, I'm going to forget. Something happens, it's kind of like this, goes away. I have, as I said, I have a son. I have a kid, and I adore my son. Not all the time, but he's absolutely the greatest love of my life, and I owe him so much today. And when he was a kid, I could look at him and I could say that I never want to hurt you. At the same time, I did. At the same time, I did a lot of stuff that I shouldn't do, but I wasn't able not to. So even when I was holding him, and I could inject myself with a lot of weird stuff, at the same time I'm holding my son, rocking him. You get kind of creative. And that doesn't mean I am a bad person, what I thought I was, but I'm not. I'm an addict and I'm an alcoholic, and you know, I have this obsession, and something is wrong. Something is very wrong. But I'm very grateful that I'm not in that today. I actually never believed in the beginning that you could live a life without being drunk all the time or high. And I'm a very bad drunk. That's why I usually don't talk about alcohol, because I did a lot of more drugs than I drank, because at a very early age I was so pissed drunk every time, and I made a fool out of myself. So I decided not to make a fool out of myself. And I'm very much I'm smarter on speed, for example. So I went over there, and I were using that more than I drank. But I'm very grateful that I'm not in that today. That I actually got the opportunity to choose, because I didn't have that opportunity before. So yeah, I could concede to my innermost self that I am an alcoholic addict, and I actually need some help, but I didn't understand what the help was. And I heard people talking about God, and I heard people talking about the program, and I heard them talk about spiritual awakenings and helping others. And the first meeting I was at, they were kind of scary, actually, because they were screaming and shouting and having their hands in the air and as in Swedish 10, 11, 12, like 10, 11, and 12. And this was for some reason the solution I didn't even understand, but this is why I'm on step 1, so I don't understand. But what I also got to know is when I usually explain it like this: when I don't have a substance in my body, I don't like to be alive. I don't like I don't like people, and I especially don't like myself. I It's wrong to say that I don't like people, because I'm afraid of people. That's more accurate. Uh, but I don't like myself. I'm very cringe. I'm very weird, and I'm very like this. But as soon as I get something into my system, I'm okay. And when I drink, it's kind of when you chug it and everything turns okay in like 2 minutes. That's kind of a okay go to. And my sponsor asked me, has it always been like this? Has it been a party ever? And no, in my case, it hasn't. Actually, it haven't been a party. It wasn't that fun. The fun started, it started and it stopped very quickly. And I'm not going to talk about consequences, because that doesn't matter. But it only took a couple of years before the drinking and the using became a necessity. It wasn't that fun anymore. It took, I think, 5, 6 years, and I'm 18, 19 at this moment. And My sobriety date is March 8, 2016. At the age of 34, I stopped. So it also there a long stretch in time. So if you go to page 44, so if you think you're in here for the first time, I don't know, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know what you suffer from, and somebody has actually told you what you suffer from, and they are going to tell you what the solution is on this. So if you can resonate with what they are saying in this meeting, so what your sponsor is telling you, they are probably going to ask you this. So we hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. If when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So if you, when you honestly want to, can find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably an alcoholic. So yeah, I think this is kind of humble. You are probably an alcoholic. And it says later on that you should not, I don't know the English word for brännmärka somebody as an alcoholism, alcoholic. But I do that all the time. And I'm very sorry for that because, I can see you. No, but no, I could see that I've lost my choice in when. I could also see that every time I try, it spirals out of control very quickly. And as I said, I had this moment 2006, and this is it. I'm going to stop now. And I think I was, I don't even want to call it sober, but I wasn't drinking for 60 days. And 60 days is all I can manage, and that was no good 60 days. So by myself, I'm okay for 60 days without using anything. And this is 2006. I gave birth to my son then. And somewhere, from here, somewhere, I got an idea. It would be okay, So I can, Friday night, I'm going to do one bump and everything is going to be okay. One. So yeah, I don't know if that was my choice. And that one bump ended up with 10 years more. So this was 2006 and I stopped 2016. So these two questions, you can ask yourself them. If you can answer yes, you are most probably an alcoholic or an addict. This is not my choice to make. I think, as I said, I'm not that humble. I'm very, blunt and very, I don't think, I don't pause before I speak all the time, but this is something you need to know. This is not something that your sponsor needs to know. You need to know what you are. It's more important that you know what you suffer from or what you are. If you can resonate with this and you can relate to what they are saying, yeah, you are probably an alcoholic or an addict. What I think, it doesn't matter. You need to know. And they continue with talking about the lack of power. And as I said before, when I don't have a substance in my body, or if I'm not drunk, I'm not a good person. I don't like even being alive. I am full of anxiety, and I have trouble sleeping, and I need to go to a therapist, and I need to go to a doctor. I need some medication just to just to be okay, a little bit. So I lack of power. This is my dilemma. This is our dilemma. And now we are on page 45. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how were we to find the power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. And I heard this at a meeting, and somebody said that I got the power when I drank, and I just, okay. I didn't understand what they were talking about, but I got the explanation of, so how are you before you drink? And I went back to my wet stain moment, because that is what I call it. I'm here on my sofa. I'm a wet stain here on, on the floor. I can't breathe. I can't function. I can't make a phone call. I can't be a mom. I don't know how to exist. But if I do something, if I take something, if I put something in my system, I am going to know how to exist. Everything is going to be okay again. And so I lack of power, so I inject myself with that power. So I understood then what they meant when they said this. So without this, and I know the people, don't always agree with this, but it's kind of, for me, it's logical, because if I lack something, I would like it. I think it's kind of logical. If you lack of something you are searching for, for example, if you get another disease, or if you need something, you are going to try to get it. So if I lack of power, I don't want to be here lying on my sofa on my floor, crying and having anxiety, panic attacks. I don't want to be that. So if I find something, well, in my case, I found, for example, benzos. That was awesome. You go like this, and in 15 minutes, you're a completely different person. So I lack of power in you know, just being me. I lack of it. I don't have it. Today I have it, but I didn't have it. But when I was high and when I was drunk, I had it for a short while. The problem is that every time I put something in my system, every time I used, I had this vision, completely delusion, complete delusion. I had this idea that, okay, I'm going to do this once, and I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to be, have this cozy little afternoon or evening in my home, and I'm going to drink wine, and this is my idea. It always starts with that. And a couple sips down the road, I'm not even home anymore. I left my home. I left my kid like this, and I'm going to, to do something else. And I don't even know if I'm coming back, because I got more power than I need to. And it spirals out of control every time. Mm. So do I now believe, or am I willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say that he does believe, or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. And this is kind of funny, because you should, this is kind of easy. If you are in a hurry, if you are like dying from alcoholism, you don't maybe have the time to sit and read everything in this book. So a question is, do you now believe, or are you willing to believe? That's, yeah, and you can say, yes, you're on the right path. And yes, I got the same question, but I had this, twisted idea of God being some kind of, punishing force in the universe, and he's out to get me for every trouble I ever had, or problem I ever had. It was by God's making. So I had to ask myself, in this case, can I be wrong? And yeah, of course I'm wrong. It's very, I know this now, but so step 2 doesn't have to be that hard, because it's based on your own experience from step 1. So sometimes I wonder, do I have that step 1 experience? Do I remember? Can I feel the despair, and can I feel, I would call it horror. My last month when I was lying in a bed in a town called Västerås. It was this queen size bed, and I had like guns and knives on that side, and I had my needles and my dope on the other side, and I was that so frail that I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. And at the same time, I'm in this, state as a person. I actually think I look kind of good, so I need to go on dates. So yeah, Twilight Zone. They took my son, I buried my husband, and I'm still in this, so why I'm saying this is because it's so freaking weird. Everybody could see. I have pictures of myself from this period. Everybody could see that something is wrong. Everybody could see. They wouldn't say that this person lacks of power, but they could see that something is fucking sorry wrong with you, and everybody could see that, but I could not see that. I have a picture of myself, doing this selfie for Facebook, whoo, like this, and I'm that tiny. Every bone in my body is, and I actually thought I was looking kind of good. So yeah, I didn't understand that drugs were killing me. I didn't understand that, alcohol is most probably going to kill me very soon. And I didn't understand that I lacked of power, and I didn't understand anything about this illness. I didn't understand anything about this. And I never understood that I was actually walking kind of slow towards death. So yeah. So my answer to the question that I got from my sponsor, do I believe or am I willing to believe? It's a yeah, of course. Because the step one is kind of a death sentence. You should not be laughing when you do your step one. Something is, you could be laughing sarcastically or ironically because it's kind of insane everything, but you shouldn't be unbothered by your step one. You should, be kind of upset, and you should be kind of in a hurry. And sorry. And it says on page 48, faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on the spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process, and we hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. And I know that people have been drinking far longer than I was, but I think actually 22 years is kind of long. It was enough. And faced with alcoholic destruction, look at your own alcoholic destruction. How many, and I'm not talking about the material stuff. How was it on the inside, faced with alcoholic destruction? But there's so, I'm going to wrap it up. I always talk too much. And if you look at from that point, living in that despair and that horror and not being able to, walk into the bathroom by yourself, losing everything and everyone in life and hating yourself and actually saying, please, let this next fix kill me. Going from that to something else kind of, amazing. And it's very beautiful. And it wasn't that fun. And it scared the fuck, sorry, again, scared me to death almost. But I didn't have a choice. And this was what I understood. And so it says on page 51, leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. And as I said, I didn't have any other choice than believing what the people in the rooms told me. I didn't have any other choice to believe what the people, as my sponsor and my newfound friends told me. And I could see something had happened inside of them. It was not only talk, and it was not only on some of them. It was, of course, but not in everybody. Some of them had this, vital spiritual experience, and you could tell because they were always the ones walking up to you, asking you, "How are you? Can I help you with anything?" And I started listening to them, and I did work my steps after a while, full of fear. I did my inventories, and I did everything I needed to do, and poof, like this. Actually, poof. It was kind of cool. So today, the important fact of my life today is, God's presence. And when I say grateful for not being in that despair anymore, I would also like to say, how can I express my gratitude today? How can I express, the love for the life we live today? How can I show you that? How can I show you that I'm actually grateful that I'm sober today? This is something I usually meditate on every morning. Not every morning, that was actually a lie. Very many mornings is more accurate. But because it said when we became alcoholic at a crushed by self-imposed crisis, this means that I cannot, I'm not good at living life. When I think it goes kind of, no, it doesn't go well. So I should stop to think about this me, and I should, live in another way. And another way is another way. It's explained in the big book. So I started looking at the people around me. What did they do? How did they do it? And they were, you know, actually praying and meditating, and they were working. Their step two, willing to believe in a power greater than themselves, had actually. How did they show me they were willing to believe, or they were believing? How did they show me? So the people that actually did their 12 step and they made their amends, and they were showing me this is how it is when you actually have a God in your life. And so I started doing the same. And I think this is it's kind of, this is what actually happens when you wake up for real. Something inside of you are going to, this innermost self is going to, like this, open up, and you are going to know what you need to do. And the logical thing is to go out and help another addict or an alcoholic. If you have a problem with helping another alcoholic addict, you have to, oh, you don't have to do anything, but you should do, actually, look at why you don't need to help them, or why you don't want to help them, because something is wrong. And because if you get, snatched out of death, because many of us come from that, and you get put in here, in these rooms, in any room, I don't care what room you are in, but you recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and you actually get another opportunity, or to live a life. Why don't you want to help anybody? Because that is not expressing gratefulness for life, or for God, and for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. What the people that actually stood before you, what they gave you. So yeah, so I believe that if you have a problem, with God or anything else, you should actually ask God to remove that, because he's the only one that can help you with it. And my vision of, or my idea about that God was a punishing force, I had this, I thought that my problems, my situations, my whatever, God put me there because he wanted to put me there. And I understand now that no, he didn't put me there. I put myself there. But I need God to get me out of it. And and I also found that it says on page 55, actually we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstration of that power in human lives, are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We find a great reality deep within us, deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. So I think I've been looking for something all my life. I've been looking for this sense of ease and comfort, and I've been searching for this perfect love, or perfect life, or perfect, I don't know, perfect serenity. And I found it when I stopped looking. Deep down inside of me, I already had it. But it was hidden, by all what we become as an alcoholic addict. But when that is removed, God has space. He gets space. So yeah, I hope I'm going to stay grateful. I hope I'm never going to forget why I got here and how I got here. I hope that, the presence of God is still going to be the most important thing in my life. I hope so. And with that, I'm going to say thank you for listening to me, and thank you, and sorry for my Swinglish and the bad language. So thank you very much.